Welcome into Kitchen Talk Pickleball Edition. I'm your host, Caitlin Miller, and this week joining us is Randall Bedwell. He's the Executive Director of the Tennessee Junior Pickleball Association and the founder of Pickleball Kids USA. Randall, it's so good to have you on, and it's great because we've also just recently had a lot of junior players also on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's junior pickleball is oftentimes a very ignored area in the overall ecosystem of pickleball. So I'm excited that you give us the opportunity to talk about what we do.
Yeah, of course. So, Randall, I know you have like a tennis background, but tell me a little bit about your background and then just how you started playing pickleball in general.
Uh, Grew up playing on the public tennis courts of Paris, Tennessee, and ended up being a state ranked player. Played college tennis at Lambeth College in Jackson, Tennessee. Played some professional tournaments and quickly realized that I was not good enough to play professionally. So I got into coaching and I got certified as a coach in 1980. I coached a number of high school teams. I worked at Maryland Farms YMCA in Brentwood, Tennessee,
Yep.
a few different times. And uh, one time at Maryland Farms, there was a woman that came into my office and was yelling, and she said, "There's an emergency on court 4. Come out there very quickly." And I go, "Oh my gosh, I don't remember any of that resuscitation business that I had learned in those classes." And I went out there, and people were playing pickleball on a tennis court. She goes, "Get them off that court immediately."
Oh,
And I
gosh.
said, "Well, I don't think I can do that." So I started talking to him, and so I grabbed a paddle and started hitting. I fell in love with the game at that point. So, and I was the first pro at Maryland Farms to get certified as a pickleball coach. And I was just poo-pooed left and right. Pickleball is just a fad. Now, 4 years later, they're going, "I wish we had listened to you."
Yes, I know, because I feel like now everyone plays pickleball there instead of tennis. That's so funny. And then, like, how did you, obviously, you're, a huge leader and advocate for the junior players in Tennessee. How did you get involved, in working with these children?
Um, with COVID, we were furloughed at Maryland Farms, and I was a head tennis coach at a private school in Nashville, and everything shut down. So I rented the old Dolphin Swim and Tennis Club on in Brentwood. It's now $9 million luxury homes, but I had it for a little while, and I started Pickleball Kids USA. And when Williamson Rec was shut down and Maryland Farms was shut down, we had an ample supply of kids coming out and playing pickleball. And
Oh,
parents came out, and I realized that we were really onto something. And I realized that pickleball is a wonderful vehicle to communicate not just sportsmanship, but life skills, to be able to
yes.
work on conflict resolution skills. And it was really an easier venue because of the flatter learning curve. It was an easier venue to do that than it was with tennis.
And what's crazy too is like you've really studied it to the point where you also developed Tennessee's official PE standards for pickleball. So I know you're a huge advocate. Obviously, you started all the camps and the junior programs, but another big thing, which is actually ironic because in my high school, I did have pickleball. And this was like years ago. And we, played on the gym surface
Yeah.
and had like little wooden paddles and a wiffle ball. And I guess one of my gym teachers saw how much I got involved with pickleball. And they're like, actually, like, do you remember when we taught you years ago? And I didn't even remember. Like, she brought that back, that memory. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was pickleball. It just seems so ancient then because no one knew what it was. But it's so good to see. And our school is really starting, would you say, in Tennessee and beyond, implementing this sport?
I have a lot of mentors in other states who've really helped me along in the last 4 years. North Carolina, Utah, Arizona, Florida. They seem to be further ahead than the state of Tennessee. And so I had to figure out a way to play catch up. So I applied for a grant with the Tennessee Department of Health, and the project was to write the PE standards for pickleball to legitimize it as a sport, um, and to make sure that in the future PE teachers would understand the pedagogies of how to teach it, and then also be able to get funding for equipment. And so
Yes.
there are roughly 2,000 public middle and high schools in the state of Tennessee. And so all the PE teachers in the state of Tennessee have access to the book that I wrote. And I travel around the state working with PE teachers and working with kids and introducing pickleball into curriculums and developing club teams. We have leagues going in Memphis. We're about to have leagues going in Nashville. And the emerging junior pickleball scene is doing quite well in Tennessee.
Well, I think the nice thing about pickleball is it's such a affordable sport in the fact that like, for just a gym class situation, you could play on the gym floor if the
Yeah.
school has tennis courts or even a parking lot, with
Yeah.
chalk. I mean, you can really get creative and, a lot of companies are nice enough to donate paddles to schools and nonprofits, but I think that's the nice thing is you really just need a net and paddles and balls, which is really, compared to other sports, not expensive at all. So I think, once people like teachers and parents realize that, I think it could really just help kids, stay healthy, but then also like keep them out of trouble too. I feel like that's the best like after school activity or just, hobby for these young kids that might not have that much going on to get into.
The when I wrote the state standards, part of what we were doing with the Tennessee Department of Health is one of their programs called Fit for Life, and they look at the kids from an emotional, a psychological, and a physical perspective. And pickleball, I was able to convince them that pickleball was in fact an answer to be able to go in and work with kids. Um, Flat learning curve, as you said, you just need an inexpensive net and some paddles, and many children who, from all of the PE classes that I've gone in and taught, many children who weren't really active, those kids that always sit on the bleachers, in PE class,
Yeah.
they would get out there and start playing pickleball. And I was just amazed. My best success story is a woman that was a HR person at the school that I worked at said my son is obese and he keeps his nose in the phone all day. Can you work with him in summer camp? And I said, sure. And he came out. He had a natural pendulum swing. And here's this chubby little kid that's found, didn't look at people in the face, and
Yeah.
he was really good. And so all my little hot shot middle school tennis kids all wanted to be his friend because they wanted to play pickleball with him. Um,
Oh,
Apple did a study with Harvard Medical Center and on the effects of tennis versus pickleball. But one of the most striking effects, one of the most striking findings they had was that for those that played pickleball on a regular basis, there was a 60% decrease in depressive conditions.
oh,
Imagine what we can do with kids if we can get them out there on a pickleball court and make them happier, make them have fun with their friends, and give them a healthy sport to play. And
right.
that's the entire objective of what I'm doing.
When I think too, like confidence and self-esteem wise, because I've taught a few kids last summer and, picking up, let's say, a lacrosse stick, which I played, or a baseball bat, that can be very intimidating. But
Yeah.
there's a sense of like with a pickleball, it's a bigger paddle, it's a wiffle ball. I feel like kids, really, it's like all abilities, all ages can play this sport. And it is such a good equalizer compared to maybe a tennis or, other sports that can be way more difficult to learn. So I feel like a lot more people just in general are able to play this sport, which also makes it so amazing.
Yeah, I think I've always said that pickleball democratizes tennis. And I've run a lot of USTA tennis tournaments over 40 years of being in the business. And there are no kids that come from public courts anymore. Um, they use clinic as a verb because they have to be a member of a club in order to be a good tennis player. It's not that way with pickleball. Some of
Yeah.
my very best players that I've worked with that are easily 4-0 and 4-0, 4 or 5 players, um, um, are just athletic kids who pick up the game, who've never been inside a pickleball club, but they
Right.
just love the
Or
sport, they fall in love with it, and they want to get better with it. So what we're wanting to do, particularly with the Tennessee Junior Pickleball Association, is work with kids that may not have access to pickleball, but then also create competitive pathways where where pickleball can be their first sport or maybe their second sport, but they're playing it on a regular basis and competing and enjoying it.
And that's the thing because it's so much easier to learn. Like I'm a 5-0 player. I've never had a
Rub it
coach.
in, rub it
But
in.
I've no, but I've like literally never had a coach. And like, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking, like, I also rode crew in college and like the amount of attention I needed, the amount of coaching and precision on my technique and the hours I spent, like, it was just crazy. Whereas I just feel like with this sport, it's like you can actually really get good or just learn the basics and have fun without really much coaching or any of that. I feel like it's a game. I think that's the cool thing. It's a
yeah,
game that like we learn together. And like I feel like my friends are the ones, helping me with strategy or saying, "Hey, you could do this better," or whatever. And I think that's the cool thing. It's like a community and it's like you're helping one another rather than relying or having to pay for a coach at a club or
yeah,
wherever it may be, because that, is very costly.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think the beauty of what we're trying to do with the association is we're trying to go into schools where the mandate was rural schools in Tennessee, but then also Title One urban schools, and two extremes. And the kids absolutely love it, and they can pick the paddle up and they can start playing, and
Yes.
that's the beauty of the sport, and that's why we've been successful in bringing in hundreds of kids across the state into this game, and most of them just love it. When I ran my tennis camps in Nashville for a few years, um, we'd do tennis in the morning and pickleball in the afternoons. So we'd all come into
That's
the
fun.
gym, at the end of the week and talk about the week. And I go, who loves pickleball and who loves tennis? And 80% of the kids like pickleball more than tennis. And I went, I'm onto something here. So that's the beauty of the game of pickleball.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And speaking of, I know the urban schools, so with Nashville specifically, you're doing a pilot program with them. Tell us a little bit about that program.
Working on a pilot program with after school programming. Our beta test is Wright Middle School in Nashville. I was out there a few weeks ago. We've got the pilot program set up. Basically, it's a semester long series that we work with kids on after school. We teach them pickleball, but I also had developed a curriculum called What's in Your Backpack. And I'd successfully done it with the Middle Tennessee YMCA for, I don't know, 15, 18 years. It combines nonviolent communication, which was pioneered by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg in the 1970s, with kind of a Zen approach to pickleball. And I used the basis for that is The Inner Game of Tennis by Dr. Timothy Galway, which was really the first sports psychology book that ever came out in the early 70s. Changed my life when I read it. And so we do these kind of character building and conflict resolution exercises as pickleball as an enrichment program for these kids. And based on my experiences in West Tennessee and particularly in Memphis, we're going to come in and take Nashville by storm. The Metro Nashville Public Schools seems to be very excited, and I get invitations every day, and we're formalizing it. And by the fall, we should be in a few different schools.
Awesome. And that's a great point because it's not only is it helping these kids physically and maybe giving them a hobby or extracurricular, but like also just like learning, like let's say your teammate, misses a shot. Like how do you properly say like that's okay rather than like
Yeah.
I could see kids, yelling or getting upset. It really just teaches them like as do most sports, a lot of life skills, how to be competitive, but also a supportive and friendly teammate. So I think,
Right.
implementing, which I'm sure you do in your curriculum there, like that really helps kids grow.
Uh, Sometimes I only put corners down on the court when I'm on a gym floor rather than taping the whole thing. And I did it out of laziness in the early days, but then I realized that children had to mediate line calls if I didn't have the full lines. And so I teach them how to mediate the line calls, and it ended up being kind of a blessing in disguise because they were able to communicate with each other when they had conflict. And so it's things like that is just have taught me a lot about kids and about myself and the beauty of the sport.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love to hear that. And speaking of, I know in your spare time too, you also do some adaptive programs with pickleball.
Yeah, we do. We've done probably 6 or 7 different adaptive programs with special needs kids over the course of time. Um, Oftentimes, I have my junior players, when we have tournaments, we spend an hour at the very beginning doing an adaptive program. We have all the kids come out and work with the special needs kids. And at the end of the match, we have all the kids like hold their paddles up and they create an arch and the kids run through it. There's not a
Yeah.
dry eye in the house, you know, and it's just the most rewarding thing in the world. And so, part of what we are doing is adaptive pickleball, and we think that fits in nicely with the growth of the game. We think that fits in as a way to bring more people into the game, and it's very, very rewarding and creates really strong memories for the kids and the volunteers that come out and participate.
Oh, I love that. I know. I
Yeah.
can't wait to start, seeing your events firsthand and just the impact. I'm sure not only on the kids, but their parents. I'm sure you've had a lot of amazing success stories.
I enjoy it. I live for this stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that. And switching gears, I love this. You've talked about how you're working on a pickleball license plate for Tennessee. I mean, how did you do other states, just out of curiosity, have pickleball license plates, or would we be the first? And how do you get into this?
We're in friendly competition with the Seattle Washington Pickleball Club because they have
Ah,
similar legislation at the Washington state. But I think that we're going to beat those guys, and that's, of course, that's where pickleball was founded.
yes.
I had some acquaintances and friends that are members of the House and the state Senate, and I went to them and said, "Hey, I got a wacky idea. Um, why don't we do a pickleball license plate, and the Tennessee Junior Pickleball Association, which is a nonprofit in the state of Tennessee, will be the recipient." And we get about $17 per license plate after all the cost and everything. And I said, we will reallocate the money toward equipment in the schools based on what we retrieve or what we receive from each individual county. And I got a unanimous support. And
Oh,
so SB 232 is working its way through the state transportation committee right now. And we have the design. I sent you a copy of the design.
yes, I love it.
And
I'll have to
we
post
have the
it.
design. And in July, we're
Yeah,
going to start marketing it. And we're
awesome.
looking to get a bunch of volunteers in different counties across the state that'll help us promote that, which in turn promotes junior pickleball across the state.
Right. Well, I think that's the biggest thing is, it goes back to the kids and that's so important. And would you say too, like, speaking of that and financials, like, is that the biggest barrier that you see with schools and just junior programs is these public schools don't like have the funding to get
Yeah.
pickleball courts, or I guess what challenges are you seeing at that school local level?
I can go out to a couple of dozen different schools and I can go out and do my thing with the PE classes and their after school programming. But unless we leave them with nets and paddles and an understanding about how to teach it, it doesn't do much good. So we're currently in the process of partnering with UTR and Franklin Pickleball to be able to offer programming and equipment with the schools that we go out and work with. And these schools
Awesome.
will give them the equipment, and the schools will agree to form a formal club with at least 24 members. Um, have open play Saturdays where members of the community can come in. And then we'll help them with the pedagogies of teaching and with volunteers when they do tournaments. So we're taking the biggest impediment. We've got some really good. We have some really good sponsors with UTR and with Franklin, and we think that we can revolutionize the way that we're introducing pickleball now that we're able to come in and give equipment, give training, and get the kids as a part of an interscholastic league where schools play other schools. And a lot of other states are pretty far ahead of the state of Tennessee, and I'm playing catch up with all of this. But we think this program is going to be able to catapult us into a into a very, very good position to grow a sustainable junior pickleball program.
That's amazing. And I know, like, since I've had some juniors on, a lot more parents and children are listening to this podcast. So, if there is someone listening that does want to get involved with Pickleball Kids USA or the Tennessee Junior Pickleball Association, how can they go about doing that?
Glad you asked me that. Um, tnjuniorpickleball.org or pickleballkidsusa.org. Just go to the website, see what we do, shoot us an email, and we'll get back with you and get everybody involved.
That's awesome. So it's like camps throughout the year and specific events. I know you're trying to also host like state championships
Yeah.
and tournaments as well. So those are the types of things that you guys do throughout the year that, these families could look out for.
We have a series of qualifier tournaments that we're doing across the state with the championships in Nashville. Um, I've done a few other tournaments like that have only had just a few schools, but now that we're setting up the qualifier tournaments, we'll probably have a draw of a couple hundred kids. And so we're very excited about that. We're really excited about going into the churches, going into the schools, and getting kids active. The most important thing that we've done in terms of getting parents involved is we call them generation gap tournaments, where we have a parent or a grandparent paired with the junior, and then
Oh,
we
I
just do a
love
fun
that.
round robin.
Yeah, that's
And
so
we
fun.
did it at my
Yes.
old school. They wouldn't tell me how much money they raised, but one of the grandparents came up to me and said, "We had such a good time. We stroked a check for $10,000." I went, "Oh yeah, this formula works."
Wow. Wow. I love that whole like split age or split
Yeah.
generation type stuff. That I feel like that's so fun and special for like someone to be able to compete with their mom or dad or grandma. I love that. That's such a great
Unlike tennis,
idea.
which I can't move around very quickly on the court anymore, but I can in pickleball.
But hey, that's the nice thing. There could be like an 8-year-old on the court and an 80-year-old on the court, and they're
Exactly.
still able to play. And I really
Yeah.
don't know many other sports, if there are any, where you can really do that and also just like enjoy yourself while you're doing it.
That's the absolute beauty of this game. There's no other game like it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I mean, obviously, you have your hands full. You're doing so much, but do you have any other, short-term and long-term goals that you'd like to share?
One of the most important things we've done is using sport as a way to do character building and enrichment. And so when we go in and we work with these kids, it's not just about pickleball. It's about developing the whole person. It's about developing the student athlete. It's about giving a child that may not have made the volleyball team or the soccer team or the football team. It's about giving them an opportunity to participate in a lifetime sport. And so it's a wonderful personal ministry for me. It's a wonderful business for me because I get to do what I like to do, and pickleball provides us with that opportunity. And there's no other sport out there that does it.
Well, it's interesting you say more of the character building. I'm just getting involved with this company. It's called Pickleball Corporate Team Bonding, where, we're working with companies that want to come in and they're looking for more of like an HR style,
Yeah.
bond building experience through pickleball. So it's like we're not necessarily teaching them really how to play or the strategy, just the basic rules, but then incorporating important character building stuff into the sport and making it, beyond the sport, which I also think is just so unique for you to do on, the junior level for companies to do it. It's just like this sport can really go anywhere.
I think that you're right. The chairman of the board of our nonprofit, John Daniel, down in Memphis, he owns Bluff City Pickleball, and he was a former HR guy with a bank down in Memphis, and he does a lot of team building stuff with HR folks. And the stories he tells me about how the adults respond and how these team building exercises carry over not just on the court, but but into the businesses and how they work better together as teams. And there's just simply nothing like it. And so for both kids and adults, there's significant benefits with this sport.
And I know I was seeing just, I think on social media, like some states have implemented, teams, like high schools have pickleball teams now, kind of like how all the universities are starting to develop it. And I feel like it's a domino effect. Once one school has it, they all get it. Have you seen that in Tennessee? Are there a lot of high schools, or if any, with a genuine pickleball team or
Yeah.
a pretty strong program?
Yeah, part of my mission was to develop teams with high schools across the state. So we probably have, the best way of saying it is we have charters for about 25 or 26 different schools, meaning they've
Okay.
gone through the process of organizing a club. Houston High School down in Germantown, Tennessee has the most active club. I've worked with them. We have sponsored a lot of their tournaments they have. They even raised money and went into and paid enough money to have some tennis courts resurfaced at a local middle school. So I got
Gosh.
to point to Houston High School as probably the best club in the state of Tennessee. But we're developing a club system. Within that, we're developing, because it oftentimes takes a very long time for a school to recognize the benefits of that. We set up and did junior team pickleball, just like junior team tennis. And I worked for
Love
the
it.
USTA for a long time, so that was my job with USTA was junior team tennis. So we're doing junior team pickleball where you've got an interested parent and six kids, and so they're all playing each other, and then that builds up when the kids come back from playing all summer long back to the school, and they're all talking about pickleball. The administration of the school is much more likely to say, "Hey, let's start a pickleball club." And I
Yes,
probably got in my
yes.
inbox probably 20 or 30 different schools. And I get calls from coaches all the time saying, "I didn't know you were out there. We've had a club team for a couple of years. Who can we play?" And I'll
Oh my
refer them over
gosh.
to somebody else. And we're slowly developing a network of coaches across the state where we can really build a strong, sustainable infrastructure. And I don't
Yeah.
believe that the TSSAA, our Secondary School Athletic Association, when I had approached them about it, they said there were three obstacles. Number one, it was a non-income producing sport. Number two, it was coeducational. And number three, there was no infrastructure. So what we're building is through the Tennessee Junior Pickleball Association, we're building that necessary infrastructure to move the sport along. We don't know if
Amazing.
it'll ever be endorsed as a state sport. We really don't care. We're providing that. We're providing all of that support that we can. The very first school system was Montgomery County, Maryland, where YOLA's national headquarters is located. So that was an easy one for them. And they had like 20 different schools that have now started competing against each other. We hope to be, we hope to have representation from next year when we have our state championships. We hope to have representations from about 50 different schools across the state. We've
Wow.
had really good responses with school systems. I've taught, a couple of hundred PE teachers who are excited and they go back to their schools and, they're teaching their kids. And, I get calls from parents every day saying, where's the next tournament? My kid loves the game. What can we do to get them with other kids? And Bluff City Pickleball in Memphis has been a real leader across the state with that. And our board of directors is very active. They're out in the community. We're working with groups. We're working with churches. We're working with schools. We're working with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We have a memorandum of understanding where we're working with them. So we were working with a number of nonprofits across the state to create this network, this infrastructure where kids can get into pickleball and have competitive pathways to be able to play or just to have fun.
Which is so amazing. And I'm so glad, to see someone like yourself doing that, especially
Yeah.
here in Tennessee. And just like even myself, I travel around for some PPA tournaments, and just over the last year, 6 months, even like the amount of juniors and just how good they are that I've seen, a year ago versus the last one I did a few months ago. It's just amazing. So it makes me so happy to see all these kids really loving the sport, excelling in the sport, and then people like yourself really supporting that. So Randall, thank you so much for, just sharing all these amazing things that you're doing. I look forward to working together. And thanks for joining us, and stay
Great.
tuned to see who will join us in the kitchen next time.